Welcome to your Profitable Law Firm podcast. I'm Kelley Brubaker, your dedicated host, passionate about empowering law firm owners. Let's dive into the hidden strategies that lead to overflowing profits, scaled growth, and thriving lives. And this is where overwhelm transforms into confidence, enabling you to create and enjoy your dream firm and your dream life. So, welcome back to the podcast. I swore that before I started recording this episode, I was going to look up what number we're on because we're approaching episode number 100,
Oh,
which is actually, yeah, I know. I'm pretty excited.
yeah.
Because I'll be honest, when I started this, everybody in my world was like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. You're going to start a podcast.
Yeah.
And then a couple of my business friends were like, how long is that really going to last?
Yeah.
So it's been
You're
2 years, like it'll be 2 years, right? So, so I'm pretty excited about that. And the first thing, like the first year I did, I think I only had one guest. And in the last 6 months or so, I've started as I've either networked with people or met people at different events. I have started inviting guests onto the podcast. And so today we have Stephen, and I'm so excited. So Stephen, if you would introduce yourself, I would be excited to have you introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. My name is Stephen A. Weisberg. I am the founder and lead attorney at the W Tax Group. We're located in Southfield, Michigan, just outside of Detroit. So my focus is tax debt resolution and IRS controversies. That's my expertise. That's all I do. We do some tax prep to help out our clients if they need it, but that's really not our focus. Our focus is solely on tax debt resolution and IRS controversy work. I'm an attorney. I've been an attorney for about 12 years. I guess longer than that now, maybe like 15 years.
Oh my goodness,
but-
you're old.
yeah, right. But I've been doing IRS tax controversy work for 10 years. And I've been the owner of my firm for about 10 years as well. So it's been a while. It took some getting used to or some gumption to come up and get rid of that corporate title that I had. I was in corporate bankruptcy and decided to go off of something that I felt a little better about in terms of who I was helping and how I was helping them. But it's been 10 years.
Yeah. And it's just crazy. It's absolutely crazy being on your own. I know I started my career at a big four CPA firm. I left, was CFO of a bank, went to a different bank that was it was a bigger entity. And then decided to be on my own. It was just a whole different animal. So it's just definitely, it's a challenge. But I'm excited that you're niched into a specific type of practice. Because just dealing with the IRS, and you reminded me, we met last week and we were talking, and you were like, yeah, we were in the same group. We're a tax controversy group, a professional networking group and educational group. And I had done a lot of, the similar work. But I did it for maybe, I would say maybe like 5 or 6, maybe 7 years. And I just got burned out. I was too emotionally invested. It like, I mean,
Hard. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you have somebody that comes into you and and I won't lie. I've had a couple that were complete dumbasses that I'm like, you dug your hole and I will do what I can to get you out.
Right.
But I'm like, but then just as many of as those stories I have just as many who are, they were kicked when they were down, and those, just really tear at my heart. And I just got to a point where I'm like, I just can't, as much as I want to do this, and I think I have a good skill set at it, I can't go on. So I definitely appreciate what you do. It's a huge thing. So what are the things, I know when we were talking before, we were talking and saying, what would be things to look out for? Because the audience for this podcast is primarily law firm owners. And, just in there's related things. There's things that happen. And I guess I would say two things. You would, not only would you have certain events happen that lawyers may be working with a client that would kind of like perk up the ears and say, oh my gosh, there might be trouble brewing. Let's get, nip this in the bud now. And then there's also, after the fact, like when you're done, and I don't know if you do this, but if somebody qualifies to discharge taxes in bankruptcy, would you handle the bankruptcy, or do you have attorneys that you would pass them off to? So so starting on the front end, like what would be the things that, if you're practicing any other type of law, what would be the things that kind of perk your ears up and say, I may need to call Steven?
Well, if they have tax debt, there you go. There's an easy one.
Absolutely.
Uh, but
Absolutely.
but that being said, especially I work a lot with bankruptcy attorneys. I work a lot with family law attorneys. With bankruptcy, I don't practice bankruptcy law. Like I said,
Okay.
I'm solely a tax debt resolution, tax controversy attorney. So I do have a lot of relationships with bankruptcy attorneys because it kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
There are times when the taxpayer has tax debt, and it makes more sense for them to go through a tax debt resolution type of process with me. It sometimes makes sense for the taxpayer to go through a tax debt resolution process with me and then go through bankruptcy. There's times where it makes sense for them with tax debt to go to bankruptcy first and then get whatever they can discharge, and then if there's taxes left over, for them to come back to me. So with bankruptcy attorneys, especially, it's pretty easy. It's kind of self-explanatory. I mean, they, to some extent, they want, certainly when you go through a bankruptcy process and you have your client has tax that wasn't able to get discharged. Well, certainly, I mean, yeah, you come to me. But on the other hand, there are times when it makes more sense to come to me first. If right off the bat that there's tax that's not going to be able to be discharged through the bankruptcy, you might want to take care of that ahead of time and beforehand, and have me resolve those issues before you head into bankruptcy with your client, so that everything will be taken care of right off the bat. So, for bankruptcy attorneys, like I said, they have clients that come to them with tax debt. You just kind of got to go through the permutations and analysis and see what makes sense. Does it make sense to get the tax debt resolved beforehand or after? Family law attorneys as well. There seems to be a lot of issues with going through divorce and there being tax debt issues or between the couples, and it's jointly filed tax returns, so it's joint taxes that are owed. And there's always a discussion between the two sides, who's gonna pay this. And what I see a lot of times is and this just happens to be this way, but it seems like the husbands, maybe they were the primary earners or something like that. They kind of take on the tax debt and they say, in the bankruptcy, I mean, in the family or the divorce decree,
Yeah.
say, I'm going to take on the tax debt. You don't have to worry about it. And that's all fine and dandy. That's great. But
Right.
the divorce decree comes through, and then the husband says, well, maybe I'll take care of it. Maybe I won't, but I know it's on
Right.
you, and whatever. And then the IRS comes and is hassling both the husband and the wife because it's joint tax debt, right? So,
Yeah.
and the wife will say, well, my husband, the divorce decree says my husband needs to be taking care of this, and the IRS basically says, well, we don't care.
Right.
State law, is state law, but we're the federal government here, and we know that both you and your husband are jointly and severably liable, meaning you both owe the tax, and we can collect from both of you. So if, if in state court there was a divorce decree, that's fine, but you gotta figure out your own situation, get that resolved, and if you want your husband to pay for it, you got to go to state court and make sure he pays for it. But we're going to keep going after you no matter what.
Yeah.
And so there's
Yeah, and I've seen it. Absolutely, I've seen it. And yeah, and I even had a case I worked where I felt so horrible. The husband left and the wife was a stay-at-home mom. They had either 4 or 5 kids, but one of them was disabled and needed almost constant care, which is why she was a stay-at-home mom. And he just one day came home, packed up a suitcase and left, and I, like, left her with everything, and so, and it was an innocent spouse case, and luckily, we actually got all that discharged from her, but it was crazy. I like, I mean, it really bothered me that
Yeah.
that even happened. But no, I know. And I'm divorced. So I know, which I didn't have tax debt, but I know going into it, I was aware of different things going into the divorce, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure that my attorney would have said to me, hey, maybe you need to
Right.
contact another attorney. So
Right.
I'm going to help you. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know, but no, so those are definitely all good things. Um, yeah, because there's things. I guess what bothers me is that, and I don't see this on the law side. I see it like on the enrolled agents and the CPAs, like the tax preparer side. Is we, and I'll include myself in this group. We have a tendency as an industry to say, "Oh yeah, you have a problem. I'll figure it out." So I at least feel, and it's very, very difficult. I mean, think about your first case that you went through just to call the IRS, not knowing that there's a priority practitioner, the practitioner priority call line. There's little things that we have as tools, we have our own little toolbox. So, I'd love to be able to say that accountants are like, oh yeah, I'm going to pass that on to somebody else. We're very territorial. I love the legal industry where you guys work together more often, and and I wouldn't say that always happens, but depending on the the practice of law, but for the most part, attorneys seem to be more like willing to call somebody in and say, hey, okay, I've tapped out here, so
Yeah.
um,
I
no,
mean,
so this is definitely good.
yeah, I mean, with the tax professionals in general, you say they're a little bit territorial, and they are to some extent. And I just always tell them, look, I don't even do tax preparation. I'm not
Yeah,
advisory. Like I only do the
right.
tax debt resolution and the controversy issues, and the client will always stay yours.
Yeah,
Also, um, a lot of them just don't want to do it, right? Like they either number one, they don't know how to do it. Sure. They also don't want to deal with the IRS, and that's the same thing with divorce attorney, bankruptcy attorney, whatever type of law, corporate law, whatever it is. Um, if it's not your expertise, it makes sense to hand it off with someone who does have the expertise. And to be honest, no one wants to deal with the IRS. It's not that fun.
I know it's not.
No one wants to deal with it. I don't mind it because it's just part of my
Yeah,
world that I've been doing forever, part of my life. But
right.
not a fun endeavor for most people. So it just makes sense, especially when you don't have the expertise to hand it off to someone that does.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I've actually had very interesting, pleasantly interesting conversations with a couple of local IRS, revenue officers and even auditors. So one of my longtime clients is from an audit. The auditor called me after and said, "Okay, that audit's done." Because I panicked because I'm like, "Oh my God, why is the IRS calling me?" And then because it was in the days, the caller ID pops up, and he was like, "Hey, totally not related to that audit. I'm on this board of a nonprofit that I need help with something different." So it's like great to actually see IRS staff outside of the IRS world, and they're actually normal people. So definitely interesting.
Well, I was going to
Yeah.
say real quick, there's a difference though between, your IRS, revenue officer or even auditor and the people that are working in collections. And I'm not saying anything
Oh, big
bad about
difference. No.
working. They don't necessarily have the expertise that a revenue officer or an agent who's doing an audit does. And they're put in a very difficult position because, they don't have the expertise. It's hard to get them the expertise. And they're kind of following like a script that's on
Right.
their monitor, and they're saying,
Yeah.
"You say this, then you do this, then you do this." And so if you deviate from that script at all, top is basically breaking loose,
It
and
does. I
they don't have
know.
any patience for you. And at some point, one
Right.
for them. So it's
Right.
difficult to deal with the collections unit. And you're right, in with
Yeah.
auditors and revenue officers. There's certainly the bad ones, but there's also some good ones, and
Yeah.
they have the expertise. So
No, absolutely. Yeah, and it's weird. I guess it's weird to me, and it's maybe not weird to people in corporate, but yeah, even you call, a general 800 number for the IRS, and they're very departmentalized. So you really have to pay attention when you hit the buttons on that call tree, on the automated call tree. It will route your call based on your answers, and you may end up with somebody that has no flipping clue what you're talking about, and then you've got to go back into the start the
right.
call all over again. So,
Or they'll
yeah,
send you somewhere, but you get you're waiting on hold for an hour after you just waited for an hour. It's a nightmare. But like you said, a lot of
yeah,
practical aspects of dealing with the administration of tax debts, within the IRS, where I have a lot of ways to get in there much more quickly. I have the priority number, but I have also other numbers that I use
yeah,
to get through there really quickly, and just to understand how to deal with the Internal Revenue Manual. I know what they're trained to do. I know what they're supposed to do. I know what they're not supposed to do. I know what the taxpayers' rights are. And when you call up on your own, you have no idea what those rights are. And the IRS has no
yeah,
incentive to tell you what those rights are or to tell you how the best deal, because they're basically the biggest collection or most powerful collection agency.
yeah.
When that's basically who they are. They're there to get money, and they're trying to get as much money as possible, as quickly as possible. So it's not like you're going to call and you're going to talk to them and they're going to be like, well, let me help you along. I'll show you exactly what to do. And this is how you get the most favorable result. And this is how you're going to save. This is how you're not going to get screwed over. Like, they're just going to take as much as they can, as quickly as they can. And
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I had a friend of a friend called me a couple weeks ago and said, I owe, 80,000 something. I don't remember what it was. And the IRS, I did good. I called the IRS myself. They told me I need to pay. Does this sound right? They told me I need to pay $35,000 in lump sum, and then they'll set up a payment plan. And I'm
right,
like, no.
right, right,
And but then it made me think, I'm like, oh no, they're probably trying to get you below 50,000.
right.
And then you like
Fine,
they're trying to
fine,
walk you through a different thing, but they're not there to help you.
right.
So yeah.
So they say things, and like you said, they may have some method to their madness, but it's to help them. It's not to help you.
Exactly.
You have no idea what they're trying to do and what your rights are. And so you
Yeah.
get the front of it. And the IRS has so much leverage. They have so much power. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you're out there on your own with their leverage and not knowing what you need to do when you're talking to them. It's a recipe for disaster.
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, I know, I get nervous because I'll get, if you see a client letter, as a power of attorney on file with the IRS, you get the copies of any notices that go to the clients. And, to get, a notice of intent to levy. And it's, panic hits me because I'm thinking, oh my God, if they find the right bank account to levy,
Sure.
that just wipes out. And I've talked to people who have had their bank accounts. So somebody was married, got divorced, had joint tax debt, but now they're divorced, but did not remove somebody's social. So like the wife didn't remove the husband's social, but it's the husband now has tax new tax debt that's not related to the wife or the
Okay.
ex, and but they are at the same bank still, and
Yeah.
then the levy comes in and it's by social security number, and it just comes in, and it's any of those accounts that social security number is tied to are gone,
Yeah,
and
and
you're
that's
not
the
getting them
point.
back.
Yeah, that's the point. There is so much
Yeah.
that can go wrong, and like I said, you're at
Yes.
such a disadvantage that,
Yeah.
there's no way that, some, taxpayers or clients, they think, "Oh, I'll just call up and I'll be fine." There's just no way.
Right.
You're at
Right.
such a disadvantage,
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
going to lose out, one way or the other. Even if you set something up, you have no idea whether it made the most sense for you. Some people agree to
Yeah.
things that they can't really afford, but they think, "Oh, I have to make some sort of resolution with the IRS." There's so much
Right.
that goes into it, and between the practical know-how and the substantive know-how that, a tax attorney, with expertise in tax that has, makes a world of difference.
No, absolutely. So let's talk about so I'm listening to this podcast and I'm like, oh, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I'm like, oh gosh, I can think of like 3 clients that I think they may need to talk to somebody. So somebody, contacts you. What does a typical process look like when you first meet with a prospective client? Like, how does that work? Do
Sure.
you like how do you work through all that?
Yeah. So the way that I do it is I do a tax debt analysis.
Okay.
Um, and where I go and I find out exactly how much is owed. I find out for what years it's owed, how much the penalties are, how much the interest is, whether there are any returns that need to be prepared and filed, because you can't get any sort of resolution without being absolute
Yeah.
compliant. So you have to find out that. Then you have to look at the, and analyze the financials of the taxpayer. And I do all of that and I determine and I figure out, what do I think I can do for this person and what would be the best resolution for them. And then from there, I tell the taxpayer, here, look, this is what I think I can do, and this is what I would do and advise you to do. Let's go from here and do the resolution. And this is what I can do, and this is what I can, what I'm going to charge for those services. But
Yeah.
you hear all these, Optima tasks, not to tell and say anyone specific,
Right.
those uh, radio, commercial
Yeah.
all the time with, we can resolve your tax debt for 10 cents on the dollar or for 10% of what you owe. And the reason I bring that up, aside from it just being silly that they say these things, they have no idea what your tax debt is. They have no idea whether you're in,
Right.
they don't know anything about
Yeah.
your financials. And that's why I go ahead and I do the analysis first. And whatever I charge for that analysis, for me personally, that goes towards the resolution. So once you sign up for a resolution with me, that money
Yeah.
paid on the analysis goes towards it. So, effectively it's free, it's a wash. But anyone who's telling you that they can tell you that, you're going to do 10 cents on the dollar, or we can resolve yours for 20% of what you owe. They have no idea. They're blatantly lying because they can't know that unless they see what you owe and how you owe your financials and all of that. So, you know, can tax debts be resolved for 10% of what's owed? Yeah, but they don't know that, whether yours fits that criteria because they've never seen anything. And so,
Right.
the reason I kind of get riled up about that is just they say these things that are so out there and but people believe
Right. They're
them because
so outrageous.
why wouldn't they believe them? I mean, people are saying something, you say,
Yeah.
okay, well, great. And then they say, here, it's $10,000, hand it over. Well, we're going to resolve this with an offer in compromise where we're going to settle your debt for a portion of what you owe. And then they file the offer in compromise, whether you qualify or not. And then it gets
Yep.
rejected. And you just handed over $10,000 and they say, oh, sorry, it got rejected, but we did what we could. We filed it. It
Yeah.
just got rejected. That's not on us. We did what we could. And so then you're out $10,000 and you still have the tax debt.
Yeah.
It's a bad situation. You certainly don't feel good about it. And I have a lot of clients that come to me after being put in that situation,
Yeah.
where they were basically snookered by one of these, 800-pound gorillas of
Yeah.
companies out there in the world. So bottom line is, I shouldn't say anything you hear on the radio you shouldn't agree to.
Right. But most, yeah.
Oh,
If it sounds too good to be true.
that's right. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
line. The part of it is that, but it sounds to be
Yeah.
true. It is. Now, if I go through an analysis of your financials and I go through, what you filed, how much you owe, et cetera, and I say, hey, I think we can settle this with an offer and compromise for 10% of what you owe. Well, yeah, I've gone through the analysis and I've decided, and through my expertise, have determined that you may be, or you would be eligible for something of that sort. So that's a different story.
Absolutely. No, I agree. And I love that approach, because exactly everything you said. I don't know how you can go into a blind phone call and say, oh yeah, $10,000 is my fee and I'll make it all go away. I just can't, it just doesn't work that way. So, yeah, yeah. But I do like the two-part approach where it's, let me do the investigation part, figure out what the real situation is. Cause I've even had, I mean, I like probably one of my best wins, well, maybe not my best dollar-wise win, but like feel good win. Elderly couple, retired teachers had, I'm in Ohio. They were from Ohio. They had gone south, bought their dream home on the beach. She had gotten sick. They ended up moving back home so that they could be back with their kids. And in the whole craziness of moving and all these things, he did their tax return and didn't report the sale correctly. So it appeared as if they had this huge sale, or huge gain, capital gain on the house they sold,
Right.
to the tune of like $100,000. And by time she's in the hospital, like she's in and out. So she ends up being in like ICU. He calls me in tears, never met this guy. And he had to have been like 85 years old. Can I come and talk to you? Yes. Just come in right now. Let's sit and talk about it. I looked through his return, realized what happened. we filed an amended return. He actually had a refund of 3 grand.
Yeah.
So, so sometimes it's like, it seems like it's that crazy, scary thing, and it's actually not. I mean, by the time you get into it, you're like, oh, we can just file an amended return, fix the whole thing, and you're done. And you're
Right.
like, oh,
But you
okay.
have to know how to do it, right?
Yes. And that's the
It's
key.
not as
Yeah.
scary once someone with expertise goes through it and says, okay, this is what we
Yeah.
need to do. And like you said, it says we're $100,000, but you actually
Yeah.
get a refund, that's great. But people don't know what to do. They don't know what they don't know. And so, yeah, you're staring at $100,000 bill and you're just like, I don't know what to do. And, if you get someone with expertise in there, it may be a relatively, at least simple fix, not an easy fix, but a
Right.
simple,
Right.
way to go after it to get it resolved.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, like I said, I like the breaking it down because I feel like that makes it simpler and more manageable. And it just, because then you can kind of walk, because I don't know how many times you have to actually drag. I mean, even though a client comes to you and says, yes, I want this, they really don't want, it's the whole, I mean, any sales books I've ever read, it's not that somebody wants to buy a hammer, it's that they want to nail the nail in the wall, so they need the hammer, they need the tools, right? So, sometimes I felt like I was dragging clients, even though they came to me for help. But just taking them a little step at a time. Like
Mhm.
let's do this first part and just see how bad it is. And then what can we do to fix this? So no, I definitely like that approach for sure.
And, kind of for saying like, it's a good way to say, here, now this is what you owe. These are
Yeah.
what years you need to file. Here's your penalties and here's your interest. These are the things that I think we can do moving forward. I mean, just that in and of itself gives like such peace of mind to people
Yeah.
because they understand, okay, like I've got this whole huge thing, this crazy thing that's going on. And like now you've simplified it and told me what I have, what I owe, et cetera, et cetera. And here's your advice for how you would resolve it. I mean, that just takes a huge weight off people's shoulders.
Absolutely. I agree. I mean, just knowing it's when you don't know, your mind just races into all the crazy things, and so
Right.
knowing is a huge relief, and just getting that far is like a huge deal. So, no, so this is awesome. So I love, these are all good things, to hopefully people can understand it doesn't need to be that scary. And if you're in a situation where you know somebody, either because they're a current client or, because I know you get this as much as I do for, because being a CPA, I get the tax questions, even though I don't really prepare taxes, but I get does this even sound right that I should be the IRS screwed me. I didn't get this deduction. And I'm like, I don't know. Go find somebody that does taxes. But so if you just know somebody who comes up to you and says, hey, I have a question about something, it's worth it to be able to reach out to find somebody who specializes in tax controversy to
Sure.
to see what makes sense. I mean,
Right.
because like you said, the IRS has their own rules of how they do things. I mean, of all things, of anybody that you ever owe, I tell people the IRS is the best entity to owe anything money to. I mean, not that you ever want to have debt, but their playbook is on the internet. You know exactly what the rules are. I mean, now you have to define what the rules are and then interpret, because it'll say, per IRM section, whatever, blah, 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 blah. To get, you've got to follow that whole reference to get
Read the law.
the answer.
I mean, you're not familiar with it on your own. And like,
It
and we
is.
talked about,
It is.
there's
Yeah.
a lot of practical aspects to it that's not
Yeah.
in the IRM.
Yes.
To
Yeah.
be able to take advantage of to get what you want. But one thing you were just talking about, people that come to you with questions and you
Yeah.
don't know that stuff. But so oppositely, it's the same thing. I'll have I know some of bankruptcy. I know kind of certainly when I should go to a bankruptcy attorney. So I have clients that come in and then I talk to a bankruptcy attorney and say, here, look, this is what we're looking at. These are the IRS stats. This is what I can do with it. He or she has these other debts that are outside of taxes. You know, how would you handle this? Would you file a bankruptcy first? Should we get the tax debt resolved, et cetera? So
Yeah.
they'll come to me with bankruptcy questions a lot. Same thing if they're going to divorce, I'm able to then go to a family law attorney or the bankruptcy attorney and get their advice because I don't go outside of my expertise. I know what I know, and I want to make sure my client best representation possible based on someone else's specific expertise as it relates to their case.
No, absolutely. No, so this is all good. I love this conversation. I definitely think it's info that everybody can use, and hopefully will go viral. And people who just have tax problems, right?
Viral,
There's
excellent.
always that hope.
All right.
So, so it's been a pleasure talking to you today, Stephen. And I know we were talking. You have a speaking event that you're going to be at. You're a guest at somebody else's event. Do you want to talk about that? Or do we
Sure.
just need to put it in the show notes?
Well, we'll put it in the show notes, the register link, the registration link and all that. But it's the Michigan Society of Enrolled Agents. It's their big conference. It's June 17th to 19th at the MGM Grand Detroit. So I know
Ooh.
you're from Ohio. It's not that far from Michigan, and you can
Yeah,
drive.
but I think it's illegal for me to go to Michigan.
Why is that? Anyway,
I don't know, it depends on who you talk to around here.
that's you can do it. You can come see
I
me.
know.
And I'll be there. I'll have a lot of great information about resolving that and what you can do and how you can do it. So that's June 17th to 19th.
Okay.
So, everything will be in the liner notes, right? About
Yeah.
my
Yeah. Absolutely. So we'll make sure in the show notes we're going to put in how you can reach Stephen if you have questions, how to connect with him on socials. For sure, if you have any questions, please reach out. It's been a great great conversation, and I've enjoyed talking to you. So
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. I do a lot of work, or I'm very active on LinkedIn. So again, my name's Stephen A. Weisberg. Stephen is Stephen. So anyway,
you
if
see how?
you wanna
So we
fi-
were talking before.
right,
I have to spell my name right.
right,
Steve
right.
Y.
If you want to find out more about kind of what I
Yeah.
do, what your options are, more about me as an attorney, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So come find me there. But the rest of my contact information will be here in the show notes, and you can call me. I have my direct number on there. You can give me a call. I'm not one of these, huge nationwide tax firms that has millions of clients. I'm a real person. I take
Right.
select amount of clients. I do what's most favorable to them. Not, it's not like a mill where I have people
Yeah.
come in and out and all that. So anyway, I'm available. My direct number will be there. It's 248-971-0885. And it'll be in the liner notes. Give me a call. We'll talk things through. If you want to move forward with the tax bed analysis, we'll do that. And then if you want to move forward with the resolution, we'll do that. But I'm happy to talk and walk you through what you have going on and where we would go from there. So feel free, give me a call and take a look at me at LinkedIn.
That's awesome. No, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time today. Great conversation. And I'm on LinkedIn too. So and I see you. I actually told you when we met the other day, I'm like, there's times where I have to stop typing because I just don't have time. I'll be sucked in LinkedIn all day.
Right.
So, but LinkedIn is a good resource to network with people. So,
Sure.
so thank you very much. I've really enjoyed your time, and we're going to sign off for today.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. This is going to